Lawyers of Reddit, what was the least defendable case ever brought to you? A woman wanted me to sue her previous lawyer for charging her a lot of money but producing almost no work to justify his fees. She gave me what she told me was the lawyer's total work product, a page printed off the internet for which she said she was charged thousands of dollars for legal advice. She had already brought a claim via my jurisdiction's disciplinary body for lawyers. She had lost and wanted to bring an appeal. The judgment kept referring to documents that I hadn't seen. I pushed her to give me everything and she came in with multiple files full of immaculate legal work that totally justified the fees she was fighting. We told her to get lost but she wasted a lot of my time before we realized she was full of shit. So this guy ordered a pizza. Nowhere was it specified that the delivery was supposed to be done under 30 minutes but the guy assumed that because movies. The delivery arrived 1 hour later and to apologize even if it wasn't necessary, they brought him his order and an additional beef pizza. The guy wanted our firm to sue them because he is Hindu, doesn't eat beef and apparently felt offended. Also this one time this dude wanted us to sue his neighbor because he assumed the guy was practicing black magic. Not a lawyer, but I am a trades union representative. At the last company I worked, we had a great set of workers. My colleague was the head representative for the union at the time, whereas I was still learning to be a representative. Anyway, we had this electrician who'd worked at the company for 25 plus years. Really well respected but his views are a little out there. My colleague had just got him back to work after a case of inappropriate workplace behavior, kissing an office member of staff on the cheek, where he was suspended for 6 months whilst investigations went ahead. He came back with a final written warning, meaning one more incident and he was sacked, all his pension, benefits, gone. 2 days after he came back, me and my colleague got asked to come into a meeting regarding this employee. Got in the meeting. Senior HR and the boss of the company are sat inside. They lay out new allegations. So we have had a report that when working in a property, you went into the house when there was only a 14-year-old girl and then proceeded to talk to her about sex, condoms and other obscene matters we won't mention, so we're just like whoa wait, what the heck, we need to talk to our colleague and find out what's happened here and give him advice. Nope. Before we even had a chance to do that, the guy spoke up and went, yeah I did. Nothing wrong with that. She's 14. She knows how to use a condom. She's from the area. That's all they know how to do. They have sex and get pregnant by 16. So I'm just talking to her about what she knows. Dude was in his late 50s, he should know better. Both me and my colleague just stunned like why the fuck did he just say that anyway? He got suspended and asked us to defend him because he says he did nothing wrong. We got the case file and evidence through, realized that there was actually fuck all we could do. He dug his grave, dug it a day after he returned to work. He lost everything, his house, pension, everything. No one would employ him as he was deemed too risky to take on, knowing they could have a potential sex scandal should he do it again. A friend of mine was in a case where a guy was accused for graffiti vandalism, among other things, and the conversation with the judge went like this. Judge, sir, did you make this graffiti? Defendant, no, I did not. J, but it has your signature at the end. D, yes, an artist has to sign his work. Case closed. This guy murdered his father, then during the trial he sent death threats to his mother. Ladies and gentlemen, take pity on my client. He's soon to be an orphan. Not my client, but my dad, and the hospital he worked at, was sued by a gentleman after he saved his wife's life. Details. Patient is pregnant with 8th child and miscarries. The fetus is removed but the patient starts bleeding uncontrollably. The only option available is a hysterectomy. It was either that, or she dies right there on the table. My dad gets called in to do the surgery, performs it successfully. Hooray. The patient's husband is quite devout and beyond pissed that his wife can't have any more kids. So he sued the hospital. No firm would represent him, and he ended up bringing proceedings himself. Went all the way to trial and he lost hard. Worked in-house for a famous character company with a large fan base. A few crazies a year call in. A guy called in claiming that we stole characters that he created and demanded to be compensated. I calmly asked them to provide more details so I can determine whether this has any merit to it. He states he designed the characters himself and gave it to the well-known actual creator when he was a kid, and the creator pawned them off as his own. I asked him when he was born, and it's a good 20 years after these characters were actually created. I ask him to explain this, and he pivots and says he also created some other well-known famous characters and brands. Characters and brands that are not owned by my company. I kindly ask that if he wants to pursue anything to send us something in writing and hang up. I figured if he wasn't going to do some really basic research on his own claim, he wasn't going to spend any time to write it up. Never heard from him again. Not a lawyer. I was a jailer and used to pull double duty as a bailiff. A guy stole a pickup truck and was later captured passed out behind the wheel parked on a sidewalk surrounded by a ludicrous amount of drugs and guns. His legal defense: he elected to represent himself because he wasn't done being stupid. Double jeopardy. You can't charge me for theft, drugs, and felon in possession of a weapon because I've already been convicted all of those charges before. In short, during his jury trial he admitted to doing it but explained with a smug grin that since he had already done time for the same charges from another case before that he could not be prosecuted for them ever again. This is not how double jeopardy works, folks. He's in prison for 20 years now. If he'd taken legal counsel he could have easily cut a deal for 5. My dad had a client who was on trial for being a felon in possession of firearms, possession of stolen property, burglary, and distribution of narcotics. Guy had multiple pictures of himself on Facebook holding guns, drugs, and cash, and had videos of himself both breaking into someone's house and stealing a gun as well as selling crack on several occasions. Despite my dad basically telling the genius he was going to prison either way, and to plead out for a reduced sentence, dude still pleaded not guilty. We still occasionally joke that the guy clearly wasn't competent to stand trial by virtue of being so dumb. She lived on a large riverfront block. She had a jetty for a boat. Her large tree fell over in storm and landed mostly in the water and making it difficult to moor her boat. She wanted to sue the government for not taking away her fallen tree. If it grows on your property, it's your tree. Simple as that. A guy wanted to sue God because it was unfair to blame the rest of us for Adam's poor choice. I read about a guy who tried to sue the devil for making him commit crimes. The judge threw it out when the man couldn't prove the devil lived in the judge's jurisdiction. A lady was sacked by a large company. They had caught her embezzling money to fund a gambling habit. They had clear evidence the embezzling had occurred, and she did not deny it. She sued the company for $300,000 for unfair dismissal. My sister's firm represented the company against this woman. The case was so easy, the firm gave it to my sister as her first ever solo attempt. My sister screwed it up badly. Not only did she lose, the court awarded the woman $500,000 instead of the $300,000 she asked for. In the end it was a good career move. The partners all knew her name and dropped into her office, one by one, to offer their sympathy. Guy is driving pounds of drugs across the country. Multiple state lines, decides to pick up hitchhikers on the way, keeps 200 grams of hash oil and cup holder for easy access while driving. If you don't know, 200 grams is 100x more than you'd need to smoke. Gets pulled over, immediately tells the cop the drugs are his because he didn't want the hitchhikers to get in trouble. Somehow, we still got him 0 jail time in lieu of community service and a fat fine. Small rural county cares more about the money than sending some kid to prison. The rich don't go to prison. Not a lawyer, but I was a witness to an assault a few years back. Had to get up in the box and be questioned. Terrifying. Anyway, it was on a night out, hanging around outside a club. A female friend of mine took exception to some dude grabbing her ass. Both start slinging insults at each other until the guy decides to sling his fist at her face instead, right in the presence of 3 police officers, who witnessed the whole thing and arrested him immediately. The guy for some reason denied it all, despite being caught literally red-handed by the popo, and it had to be resolved in court. How would you even argue on his behalf? Not a lawyer, but here's the most amusing time I had while being an expert witness to tell the court about chemical risks. Without naming too many details and faking the chemical's name, it was about a small group of workers suing their very large corporate employer for unsafe working conditions with hydrogen chloride. So, I confirmed I didn't know these people, and wasn't, or hadn't, worked for the company, said sure, I'll do it, and went off. I sat there answering a lot of super leading questions. What is this substance? Is it dangerous to do? Exceptionally stupid action? What would happen if you drank it, poured it over your head? Would you say that? Hilariously insufficient protection is enough to handle hydrogen chloride, etc, etc, etc. That took about 30-45 minutes, after which I had just about sweated through my suit, even though I wasn't even on trial. The defense steps up and goes, "Thank you for answering all those questions. We would like to remind the court that the substance in question is not hydrogen chloride. It is, in fact, sodium chloride. Could you briefly sum up the risks in working with sodium chloride?"